Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhi Tamastu Ma Vitvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om.
Namaste to everybody. Today we are going to have a podcast by Shri Girish Sohani. Uh, he is a trustee of BIF, which is a very reputed voluntary organization. I came to know more about BIF when Girish's predecessor Hegdeji and myself we went to Israel as a part of the government delegation to see the agricultural exhibition in Israel. Subsequently, Girish visited Kanyakumari also. He stayed for a day and he was very much fascinated the concept of spiritual oriented service organization. I don't know how much the spirituality is there in our way of work, but the very term was very fascinating to him. And then he thought that Vivekananda Kendra and BIF can have some MOU, some understanding and all that, but unfortunately it didn't materialize. I'm happy that after a long gap I am seeing Giriji in this podcast. I will request Madan Kumar to introduce him. Incidentally, Madan is a very fan or an admirer of Giriji Sohani. Giriji may not be knowing, Madan is a product of Dhyan Foundation. He worked with me earlier for 10 years. And then Vasimalai, who is almost the opposite of my personality, he is working with him for more than 20 years. So he will introduce you. Over to Madan.
Yeah. Good morning. Am I audible to everybody?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, it is a privilege and also an opportunity to introduce our Girish ji to all our audience of working group members. And in fact, the speaker is a known figure in terms of all the development sector. In fact, he has professionally qualified as a BTech from IIT Bombay, and is a postgraduate diploma from IIM Ahmedabad. Also, is a product of it. So he has nearly about 40 years experience in the field of rural development, natural resource management, and livelihood systems. So he has been associated with BAIF as of now also, and the distinguished awards which he has got. One is a distinguished alumnus of IIT Bombay. He is recipient of Maha Entrepreneur Award in the year 2013. He is a Commander Order of Agricultural Merit from Government of France in 2016. That was his thing. His span of attention grew from engineering to empowerment. In 1970s, it was more on engineering foundation and systems thinking. In 1980s to 1990s, it was on field leadership in watershed, livestock, and agroforestry. In 2000, it was more on institutional building and value chain scaling. In 2010, it was on innovation and global recognition. In 2020, it was more on the mentoring new generations in sustainable livelihoods. BAIF is known for its much good development works as any other NGO in the national level. One is it came to a big light on Wadi's model, which has been promoted and was showcased to the government as the best one, how the smallholders agroforestry revolution could take place. Another is about the natural resource management in terms of watershed and soil conservation, and the livelihood diversification, which has made a very intense dent in dairy, crafts, and micro enterprise, and community institutions, unique of its kind, where the people wisdom, SG's farmer producer companies. And normally his field reflections from the programs being Dan Foundation. And I have been his deliberation on microfinance and asset building. It's a thing to be preserved for anybody where assets out to be seen as a protective resource in terms of crisis. And this paper is to be preserved for everybody who was in the development sector. He has done as if you would like to explore a village study. Similar is the study paper which he has done for microfinance asset building. where assets dimensions are of very unique order were being explored, and that has been a presentation in terms where you are sharing with the BRAC and other fraternity of the NGOs as such. Still, I keep that particular book as a point of reference whenever the word asset comes to my mind. One is his field reflections is basically his thoughts on the subject where every village is a classroom, every farmer a faculty. That's a snippet from which I have learned from him. Success in development is measured not by scale but by ownership. The field teaches humility. As you could have seen in the beginning of the talk, very clearly he has made very, I have to take my help of daughter-in-law, I have to do this. So humble in his terms, though he has a big thing, but so humble in terms of his expressions, it's natural as such. So one is from projects he has moved to the system thinking, integration over isolation, linking water, soil, income, dignity. From donor dependency to community enterprise. That's another unique of its kind where NGOs always have a dependency on the CSRs and other people. Now community enterprise has been the thing. Then digital and green convergence. Then very systematically the livelihood graduation, which has been hardcore of the India's need, that they have been very successfully done in BAIF as such. And they see a local institutions as an anchors of change. That is the thing as such. One biggest achievement of their own BAIF is basically connecting the farm to the market. How best the producer collectives could give a big dent in the whole market. Another thing is adding value through the local processing. How best a value addition incremental thing could give a better terms of income generation, and ultimately resulting see that the small holders get a better margin of their incremental livelihoods. That's one thing. And above all, it is on eco-friendly and also low carbon supply chains. So, for the people who are had a privilege of sitting under him or with him or as a co-traveler, we always look forward him as a mentor. Either like Ekalaiva, though he may not remember me of his early days of my association, but I see more of to be an Ekalaiva to see his thoughts. Wherever Girishji names comes, I immediately ponder over it and see it. Some lessons which I always love Girishji is one, listen before you design. That is one thing which I learned from him. Measure dignity, not just data. Build livelihoods, not beneficiaries. Bridge classroom theory with the field wisdom in terms of conceptualizing whatever happens at the grassroots. Then stay grounded. Every spreadsheet must touch soil. So a lifetime contribution he has done. He has mentored hundreds of young development professionals. He has a leadership in transforming BAIF into a knowledge-driven institution and earned a lot of international recognition for the BAIF and for himself for sustainable agricultural entrepreneurship. So in his future directions development, the value-based partnership he always adores, climate resilience and carbon positive rural livelihoods is the one of his passion, and youth leadership in sustainable development. So we are very proud, sir, to have you in this morning hours, and it is a privilege for us. And for a morning, we look forward for your insights and reflections. You have been interested in Vasudha in terms of enabling the people to live a sustainable lifestyle. We look forward from you on discovering the pathways for inclusive and sustainable development. So over to you, sir. And Vivekananda Kendra Nardak is very proud. And being a parent organization where I worked as a life worker over there for 10 years and now in Dan, getting groomed by all the development stakeholders. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the opportunity for introducing you. It has been a privilege, sir. Over to Girishji, please.
Thank you so much, Madanji. Thank you, Asudevji, for inviting me for this podcast. And that gives me the opportunity to meet all of you and interact with you. And thank you, Madanji, for a very nice introduction, which tells the depth of your own experience in development sector. The way you articulated development approaches was fantastic. I was, I remember very well my earlier interactions with Vasudevji, and how Vivekananda Kendra had pioneered some of the new initiatives, like, for example, Azula cultivation in Kerala. I remember in those days it was being done in Kerala, but I'm sure it must have been done other places also. And I also remember my association with Dhan Foundation and what Madanji described. So I have a great respect for Vivekananda Kendra as well as for Dhan Foundation, and it is my privilege to be here with you to share some thoughts which I have based on the experience, development experience that I have. I have called it basically reflections from the field programs. It is on various development directions that are probably relevant now. And uh, when I'm talking of reflections, I'm talking of a set of disjoint sort of principles which probably come out of the experience in development in the field programs. And I will also try to relate it to our program, which BIF pioneered, the WADI program, and then what all this implies for the future directions of development. So I will try to finish the presentation in half an hour, and then there can be discussion because I'm sure you will all having a lot of things to contribute in the whole dialogue. So I will request Vasudevji to ask me to stop if it is getting too long. But let me begin. So I am going to talk about development directions, reflections from the field programs that I have been exposed to, and I think one of the important things which all of us have experienced has been the great traumatic event of the COVID, which slowly is getting out of memory. But if you remember, it was a period of almost 1.5, 2 years when things affected us very deeply, and it was like a hard hit on our head, and it told us what were it brought to fore what were the limitations of the past approaches of development. It also pointed out to us how frail is our existence, and how uh, when we are talking of human well-being, we have to go beyond economic prosperity, and there are other things which probably we are not giving due attention to. So the past work in development had been focused on economic development, on markets as an institution, um the trickle down effect, hoping to reach to the underprivileged, and so on. But in spite of all this earlier effort, there have been emerging challenges, the continuing disparities and the increasing divides that are plaguing us, the environmental catastrophe in which we are finding ourselves, and the whole development approach, which is not based on sustainability, but which is based on mining of whatever is there, whether it is fossil fuels, whether it is minerals, whether it is energy sources, and so on. So these are the things which probably were brought to bear on us very strongly, particularly during the COVID times, because everything that we had assumed works till now did not, they stopped working. And then it also brought to us face to face with a lot of new calamities that were emerging. So that was something which probably helped us to ponder more about our development approach. And as I said, we have this problem of deepening social divides and economic vulnerabilities, but also the climate change effects, which are triggered by the environmental disaster that we have forced the world into, has resulted in many problems. Which even the pandemic, we don't know whether it was how much it was directly connected with the environmental disaster, but we know that the destruction of habitats and is going to lead to a lot of microbes and pathogens jumping from their existing habitats to human settlements, and that is going to lead to a lot of pandemics. So the COVID was one example, but many more pandemics can be expected in the future. So all this points out to some of the changes that are coming and affecting us very severely. And one of the important change that has come about in the past few decades is the erosion of diversity. And the erosion of diversity has been, we talk about biodiversity, we talk about agricultural diversity and how that has eroded, but at the same time there are erosion of diversity of various other forms which have been characteristic of human civilization. It is the erosion of languages, it is the erosion of culture and art forms, it is the erosion of knowledge in terms of indigenous knowledge, and along with biodiversity and along with agricultural diversity. And all this is something which is the fallout which is out of last so many years of development approach. So we come back to some of the old wisdom from our own texts, which, for example, this is a hymn from Atharvaveda which said, "What I dig out of thee, let it quickly grow over. Let me not damage thy heart or thy vitals." This is part of an ode to earth, and basically what it is saying is that we should use. Even when we are dependent on nature, it should not be exploitative. It should not be a resource depleting relationship with nature, and our the way we use the natural resources has to be in a sustainable manner. So this is a wisdom which is from thousands of years ago, and probably somewhere during the last few hundred years of existence we have forgotten this wisdom, and it is time we have to come back to understanding sustainability in the old perspective. So there is now need to broaden our vision, to make it long term rather than very myopic, and make it more holistic. So if we have to do that, we have to think of different parameters of development. It cannot be just income, it cannot be just economic development, but it should be relating to health, it should be relating to the environment. uh, we are not to think in terms of increasingly our measure of development is becoming very, very myopic. It is just a few years. In fact, all development programs are focused on just a few years of achievement, and the 5-year planning horizon itself is a big constraint. So we need to have a long-term horizon of planning development action, and therefore we cannot just think of this generation in which we are, but also we have to think in terms of successive generations. We cannot think in terms of, however we may talk of the country, it cannot be just a development which is affecting one country, because what is the use of development in one country if the neighboring country is going to be subject to all sorts of disasters, whether it is demographic, whether it is environmental. So it cannot be one country, but the whole biosphere is one. So we have to change our vision, broaden it considerably, and we have to make this happen in the present economic structure that we have created for the world, and which is based on business. And but that is increasingly there is a realization that even business cannot survive if it does not take care of the long term benefits to the society. So, and it is slowly it is seen that social sanction to do business is something that is required for any enterprise to survive. There have been numerous examples in India as well as the world where social sanction was not there, and that has created a lot of backlash for the enterprises. The very clear example we had in India was that of Coca-Cola, where it was depleting groundwater in some areas where it was operating, and it was becoming such a major environmental disaster in that area that there was a huge public uproar which forced them to change their ways. And so social sanction to do business is a requirement, and any business cannot thrive in a society that fails. So this has to be the basis for any work of corporate social responsibility. It cannot be done out of legal compulsions. So this is something which is a change that is slowly coming about, and probably that is a maturation process for society, for civilization, and for the present form of economic enterprise. Another important thing that and different concepts that I will talk about. So one is that of a circular economy. See, we talk a lot of waste. It's very interesting. One of my friends was talking in tribal areas to the tribal children, and she was trying to explain to them about waste and how waste reduction is important. And then it was a big uphill task for her to explain what is the waste, what is the concept of waste to the tribal people, because for them the concept of waste doesn't exist. Everything in nature tends to get recycled, and the output from one part of the process leads to some use for maybe human beings, but the rest of it is also used for other life forms, and it is taken back, it is recycled, it is again going into some sort of a circularity. Whereas as a result of which there is nothing called waste that comes out of the system. But when we talk of a linear economy, when we are talking of producing something only for the use by humans, then there is something which is waste which is generated. And we have to shift from from the linear economy to a circular economy if we have to eliminate the concept of waste. Today in India, slowly the problem of waste is becoming increasingly of very high proportion. We see the plastics becoming a disaster everywhere, all over the country. And if you go to the US, probably all types of waste, including food waste, is something which is a major part of the whole system. So if we have to come out of this system of waste, we have to come out of this system of linear economy. And circularity is very important for resource optimization and to see that the resources are used not only for human utilization, but also in a way for continuing the all other biological systems that exist in the nature. So circularity is important, and we have to think in terms of how growth, which may be necessary for producing, or sustaining the larger population that we have, but how it can be achieved through circularity. And if you have circularity-based system, then sustainability and resilience becomes more easy to achieve. If we don't have a circular system, if you have a linear system, then sustainability and resilience becomes very challenging to achieve. So this is one important thing that we have to keep in mind. The other thing that probably is important to understand is there are certain, whatever are the short-term objectives or whatever are the objectives that we have for our endeavors. There will always be these will have to be there will have to be larger objectives which superimpose on these specific objectives. Some examples of the what I call as super objectives are like this. One of the overriding objective can be reducing the resource footprint. If you look at the Indian civilization, there have been we have records of 5,000, 8,000 years of civilization. Probably it is much older without records, and we have less records and less archaeological evidence of the older civilizations. Now, the absence of archaeological evidence is actually saying that that civilization existed with minimal resource footprint. So we have to understand that if we as a civilization in the present times have to exist without in a sustainable manner, we have to see that our resource footprint is reduced. And today probably we have that challenge, as we know that cities are growing and cities are becoming guzzlers of resources, whether it is fuel, whether it is water, whether it is food, which comes from hundreds of kilometers distance. So, instead of reducing resource footprint, we have adopted a development direction which is increasing the resource footprint. So we have to revisit that, and we have to see how resource footprint, whatever we do in development, how it can be contributing towards reducing of resource footprint. The other important thing is to move away from mining. If we look at use of minerals, it is basically mining. If we look at our resource use in terms of energy, it is basically mining, because we have based it on fossil energy sources. Now, if you look at a sustainable way of living, it should be something to do with the input that we are receiving, whether it is coming as solar radiation, or whether it is using the solar radiation to produce other types of forms like vegetation. So if you want to really develop the human settlement in terms of human consumption, then you have to see that it is not based on mining, but it is based on a renewable source of input, whether it is industrial feedstock or whether it is. So if we want to have an energy source, if it is fossil coal or fossil fuel, like your petroleum, it is going to be an unsustainable way of developing the economy. But if it is based on a sustainable source like solar radiation, or if it is based on biological sources like biomass, then it will be something which is a more sustainable way of living. So that is as far as energy is concerned. But the same applies to other types of feedstock. And so today we are facing the challenge that the farm is becoming less remunerative. Not only at the GDP level, the contribution of agriculture is very low, but at the same time, we see that for rural communities, the dependence on agriculture or the farm is not generating enough income to give them a good standard of living. So we have to see how the farm can become a good contributor, not only to improve their standard of living, but also to help the shift to a bioeconomy. And for that, the farm has to stop becoming a producer of cereals or food. It has to also produce fiber, it has to also produce fuel, it has also to produce feedstock for the industry. So that will be a transition to bioeconomy, and how that can be achieved is something which is a larger objective we can keep overriding on the specific objectives for individual projects. Similarly, if you are talking of again, I am talking of the present rural sector where there is less economic opportunity, livelihood opportunity from agriculture alone. This is because agriculture is primarily related to food production, but the farm has to become, as I said, a source of food, fiber, fuel, and feedstock, and that will create livelihoods in the production sector. But at the same time, in today's times, there is a lot of possibility of other types of livelihoods being generating from the agri sector. That is not from production, that is from transformation, that is from mechanization, that is from use of information technology. So there are a lot of rural livelihood opportunities that can emerge, which are beyond agricultural production, and that is something which will help to create rural livelihoods which are non-farm, and that will help people to stay in the rural areas and still earn good livelihoods. So all this together contribute to some sort of a green economy that we have to help create, and that is something, that is a change in paradigm that will have to. I think Vivekananda Kendra has been working on that for a long time. When we talk of creating a solution for a problem, it is very important to understand that there's a very nice article by Wendell Berry. It is called Solving for Pattern. You will get it on the net. And I think if you have not read it, it is worth doing it because it's a very interesting concept that if you try to solve a problem, if you try to develop a solution for a problem, it will not last, it will not sustain, because what happens is, suppose take the case of low production. So if you want to higher production, one way agriculture has adopted is to use high yielding varieties, is to use chemical fertilizers and chemical inputs, and all that has led to increased production. But at the same time, increased production, good production has given good yield, but it has created other problems. So we have a solution for a problem, and we have one problem which is being solved by using, in this case, for example, high yielding varieties and the green revolution technologies. But we also realize that it created other problems. So if you create a solution around the problem, you create other problems. This is one example, but there are many other examples. On the other hand, if we look at creating a solution which will be beyond production, okay, low production is a problem, but then we create a solution which is beyond production. It is not only giving better yield, but it is also diversifying the production. If it is also producing good quality of produce, it is also going to lead to good nutrition being produced. And if this is to be done, if all this is to be done, then the soils also have to be rejuvenated. So it has to be a soil enriching production program also. And if all this is being done, it will also create a better health for the consumers. And if all this is being done, it will also create a better environment. So if you are trying to think that you are if you are trying to develop a solution which is beyond that individual problem, then you probably end up having a solution for a pattern, not solution for a problem. And that is what Wendell Berry says. He says, don't solve a single problem. A good solution has nested goodness qualities, and it doesn't solve the problem, but it also solves the whole pattern. And that pattern, probably all our existing technologies that we have developed, many of them have been solving a problem. And we have to go beyond, look at the problem as part of a larger system, and then we have to see ki how a solution can help to affect the system positively so that we solve for pattern. So that is a concept which is something again relevant to us from the point of view of sustainable development. Uh, Now we need to prepare for an emergent future. We need to put all these concepts into practice, and along with that, we have these in specific objectives which on which we superimpose goals like reducing carbon emissions, creating a circular economy, and we have different newer tools that are available now which were not available in the past, like information technology is a tool which is now available, and there are different ways by which it can be applied to create livelihoods across the rural areas. So all this actually the challenge for us is to use all these approaches to create a new civilization. And that is another very interesting book that is there by, I think, Alvin Toffler and Heidi Toffler. It is called Creating a New Civilization. And the one who wrote Future Shock, he wrote a very nice book called Creating a New Civilization, a very small book, 70, 80 pages, and very revolutionary in its thinking. So it talks of the changes that are going to come, like information technology probably help to uh, create a lot of decentralized applications. The newer technologies that are coming are also going to do that. For example, solar energy. Solar energy is something which can be used in decentralized manner and therefore create decentralized energy sources, unlike the very centralized energy sources of the fossil fuels. Also, along with information technology, combined with this, you can have localized, along with the bioeconomy, there is localized resource generation. Along with solar energy, there is localized energy production. Along with information technology, there is a localized use of the knowledge that is being generated and sharing it across the world. So all this is going to lead to what he calls as a demassification of economy. The results of the industrial revolution was a massification, was centralization. Now we are talking of localization, and this localization transformation is something which will be very important for sustainable development to emerge. There is also another book that I am referring to, which also I'm sure some of you would have read it, but others actually can read it. It is by author called Robin Kimmerer. She is an American Indian, and she wrote a book called Braiding Sweetgrass. And braiding sweetgrass is sweetgrass is a type of grass which the American Indians used to, to braid into some sort of various decorative items. But what was important is when you harvest the grass for creating these braids, you are actually disturbing the plant in such a manner that it leads to more production of the grass. So it creates it throws runners, and it creates more grass. So the use of the grass for creating items doesn't destroy it, it rejuvenates it and it enriches it to produce more. So the grass actually, the whole effort is therefore that you are not creating something leading to destruction, but you are creating something at the same time regenerating what is available. And this is something very interesting. What she says is that when you use the grass, it has a fragrance, so you get that fragrance transferred to your hands. So you get the fragrance and it comes as a gift, and you are producing something out of it, but you are also getting a gift. And when you get a gift and you produce an article out of it, you're producing something which you can give it to somebody. A small basket, for example, made from the grass. So instead of a commodity, it is a gift. So you are creating, and you are therefore creating. When you are creating a gift and giving it to somebody, when you give it to somebody, it creates a relationship with that person. And with that gift received, the person also feels that there is something which has to come back, so there is a reciprocity involved. So the gifting process creates a whole economy which is based on relationships and reciprocity, unlike a commodity based economy which is based on transaction, which is based on transaction value, and you pay for it and that is the end of it. But here it doesn't end, it creates a chain of relationships and reciprocity. So uh, gifts along, it goes along with gratitude, and it leads to reciprocity. So we need to create, if we have to have a sustainable system of working, we have to have a relationship between people which is not based on transaction, which is based on reciprocity. So she says reciprocity is a matter of keeping the gift in motion, and that is how it creates a very different dynamics in society. So these are interesting concepts which probably all of us have to digest and try to apply in what we do. There's another thing which I would like to mention is when Albert Einstein once mentioned that knowledge always exists in two forms. One is a dead form, like reports and books and what is there in the library, and then there is a living form, such as what is there in the consciousness of people. And this knowledge in living form is what is there in all the local diversity that existed. So the indigenous knowledge of the Vedus, where the herbal knowledge was there. See, if you go to a Ayurvedic college, you will learn about 400 medicinal plants. I was walking with a Vaidu in one of the tribal areas, and he was pointing to me as we walked all the different trees and what their medicinal uses was. And he probably talked of more than 400. So it is what an Ayurvedic doctor knows is very limited compared to the living knowledge that the Vaidus have. And the Vaidus know, see, if you study in a college, you know the name of the medicinal plant. You don't necessarily know how to recognize it in nature, whereas the Vaidu knows it in nature. Whereas the Vaidu knows it in nature, he can recognize it, he knows how to use it, he knows how to use different parts of it. So it's a living knowledge which is very different than, and it reminds one of what Albert Einstein said, that how instead of a dead knowledge we can have knowledge which is living. And the entire medicinal folklore that is there, the ethno-veterinary medicine knowledge that is there, the seed saviors who have done a lot of agrobiodiversity conservation, and the local craftsmen and local folk artists, they hold this knowledge as a wisdom, as a practicing knowledge. And that form of knowledge is probably getting eroded increasingly, and we have to take it back. We have to preserve it. We have to see that it gets preserved not only as a knowledge, as a report, as a book, but as a practice, knowledge and practice. So all these things, these were concepts which we tried to apply in BIOF programs. And I will just refer to some programs and some of the ways in which uh, uh, we talked about Wadi program earlier. So, what is the Wadi program? That is basically in tribal areas we developed this idea that it is a program which combines human as well as ecosystem well-being. It is a tree-based farming system. It has been used to help development, economic development of the tribals, but it is based on an approach which actually creates ecosystem well-being. So, what we have done is we have combined short gestation activities with long-term benefit activities. Uh, this is an example of a wadi. You can see that it is basically a combination of horticulture and forestry and done on a sloping land where the land is shaped with soil conservation measures, with water conservation measures, and in between the trees, you have some agriculture crops, vegetables, and so on and so forth. In order to make this land productive, you also create a small water source which can be used, carried as head loads and used for producing intercrops, but also for establishing the trees. What is important is in such a wadi system, you have the forestry trees which create a very different microclimate in that whole area. So the humidity is better, the moisture loss is less, and as a result of it, the whole ecosystem thrives compared to the surrounding areas where it may not be a very productive system. So you end up having very good production. You end up having uh, production both in the short term like vegetables, medium term like early maturing fruit trees, and longer term like some small timber and fuel wood coming from the fruit forestry trees. So we have uh, the medium gestation activities which give high resilience, short gestation activities also having remunerative return, and as a result of that, we create an integrated farming system, uh, which probably is a much better way than putting this land into just agriculture or just one type of production. Now, what happens with this type of system is that you are creating multiple income sources from production sources from different crops. As a result of that, you have the production spread throughout the year, and there is a natural hedging against climate disasters as well as market fluctuations. So you have a much better resilient system. Everything doesn't fail at once. There will always be something to fall back on. So but at the same time, this not only produces for the people to use, consume, and sell, but also creates a much better way of conserving the soil, a much better conservation of the biomass. As a result of that, the whole ecosystem develops along with creating a production system. So uh, you bring in possibilities of course there are other ways in which what we did was mainly focusing because we were working with tribal livelihoods, and though we were working with tribal livelihoods, this leads to also a lot of climate effects, positive effects. Like there is so much of food that gets produced, so much of biomass that gets produced, that you have carbon sequestration that is taking place at the same time. So this is achieving mitigation as well as adaptation, and tribals are able to derive a sustainable livelihood out of this. But there are other ways in which it can be enriched. It can be enriched by enriching the soils further, by improving the microbial population, by building better biodiversity, adding value chain development to ensure that there is increase. We have done that in some places where cashew processing, mango processing has been introduced, and all these climate resilient measures can be improved. So further enrichment is possible, and Wadi is like it is not a blueprint. It is an approach which can be further enriched by whoever is applying it. So there are various ways of enriching it, and this is what we have done in some places. As for example, biochar creates a lot of improvement in the soil conditions, and biochar addition is something which is possible even in decentralized manner in local areas. And the biochar creates a habitat for microbes, and thereby it improves the soil conditions and enriches the soil. So that is something which can be done. Uh, so all this Wadi program, the biochar program, the agrobiodiversity conservation program, here you can see we have done a lot of work in many areas where there is conservation of agriculture biodiversity, but it is at the same time also seen that this is being used to create something which is adopted by the people all over. For example, we had, for example, simple ways. They're very good positive. Plus trees of different types. For example, mahua. So we created nurseries out of those mahua trees, which were used for planting. Now that was something which was not done in the past. Grafting of mahua. So that is something which has been introduced. So how you can apply new science and technology to promote better ways of conservation is something to be kept in mind. And of course, this is more about agrobiodiversity, which is what our program is in many parts. And agrobiodiversity is not just for creating a gene pool. It is also to match crops to the ecological niches. It is to see that conservation of keystone varieties takes place. And at the same time, because of the changing climate, there is need to identify varieties which would survive in those changed climate situations. So the hotspots that exist provide survival solutions for the changed climatic conditions that are coming about. But at the same time, what is important is biodiversity. Out of all these use values, there is also an intrinsic value in itself, and that has to be kept in mind. So basically, what we are saying is, unless we are able to take an approach in future which combines human well-being with ecosystem well-being, we are not going to have a sustainable development. And that is what the direction we have all to take. And we have to develop our own ways in which it can be done in different situations and different ecosystem. I'm sure from what I know of Vivekananda Kendra also has been doing that in many places. And I think there is a lot of exchange of ideas and experience that can help us to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Girish ji. It has been a very blessings for us in terms of having insights from the great scholars of solving the pattern, other people whom you have, three books you have referred. And three books have been a very relevant books in terms for all the development practitioners who should have a definite look at it. In fact, the pattern book, Solving for Pattern, how it looks for the invisible order and the whole system. That's a great thing which one always should look in. That's a great thing, and that author has been also stressing a great thing of it. And as far as the braiding sweetgrass also, that is also an interesting thing, where which it calls for the valuing the indigenous knowledge part of it. That is also, we have been cherishing this dream in Vivekananda Kendra, not up in a bigger way as such. And the Alvin Toffler's, that's been a future shock. Whatever he anticipated in terms of happening, it is happening much more faster than what it has been. So that's a threat in terms of the things how it has been happening, and giving a positive thing in terms of creating a new civilization by in fact, I remember that it has been done by Alvin and A.D. Toffler. Both of them have jointly done that particular exercise as such. In fact, when I was reading the Future Shock, it was really disturbing. All this does not happen in the way of development. But now when it has become a reality, it is a big threat in terms of understanding the whole thing. So the way he has been calling for a decentralized things and doing it, and the present development actors or stakeholders who have been pursuing that as a way, it's been very exciting. Probably my colleagues will be having a very interesting reflections on your thoughts. In fact, we synchronize more on your thoughts, and as we are in the same field of development. So over to my colleagues in the working group to ask for questions and clarifications which they have. Over to my friends.
Good morning, pranam to everybody. Girish, Sohani sir, see, first thing that Sohani sir has touched very sensitive issues which are relevant to today's challenges, not only for India, but the entire human beings. And the three books which he has referred will help to understand the issue better. Now, for me, I am quite impressed by his following concepts. One is this relationship-based economy instead of consumption economy. That's a fantastic point he has referred. Another is a conservation of knowledge in a living form. And the third is integrated farming systems, which is he is calling it as a Wadi approach. All these three concepts are terrific. My one modest suggestion was that for the integrated farming system, can we also integrate the animal farming with that? Because that also becomes a good source, income source, side by side income source for a farmer, and it also gives the, you know, the what we say, the for the farming, the inputs for the farms. So that was one suggestion, and a few observation from my side were that that we are simultaneously dealing with social justice as well as environmentally friendly development. These are the two main things which we are trying to fight with or to solve, as I understand from Girish sir's presentation. And social inequality is because, in my opinion, and also what he has highlighted, is because of the unequal access to the resources and opportunities in India, and erosion of biodiversity and agri-diversity. And this is happening because of the unsustainable practices and climate change challenges. Climate change challenge is not completely in our control, but that's a fact, I mean, and we are facing that. Globalization also has contributed to change in our lifestyles and economies, and that is happening at the cost of the cultural identity and local resilience. That's a big problem. Cultural identity, losing cultural identity because of the globalization. And all these challenges are intertwined, and I mean, it's very easy said than done, but we should go for inclusive and equitable growth, empower communities which are sidelined or which are marginalized, invest in quality education and regional development, and pay attention to ecological sustainability through agroecological methods. And we should save our native species, plants, agricultural plants, and the farming should be climate resilient type. I mean, all this has already been said by Girish sir, and this is what my takeaway for today. Thank you very much. Pranam.
Shall I respond? Just a few thoughts which came to my mind.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So I think what you said, Jagdishji, is very true, and you summarized it very well. Just 2 points I would like to add. One is about animal as part of the integrated farming system is concerned. Yes, indeed, animals have to become a part of the integrated farming system, and in fact, they are contributing also to the circular economy, because the output that comes from animals, particularly the bovines, is something which is very beneficial to agriculture production. And the bovines, particularly the ruminants, particularly even the small goats and all, they consume roughage which cannot be consumed by human beings. So the roughage gets converted into something which can come to human beings via the agriculture route, and that is something which has to be there. So animals have to be a part of it. The reason why we did not make that a part of the Wadi program is that when we started in the Wadi development in South Gujarat, we found that the tribals were migrating for 6 months in a year, and 6 months in a year they were migrating just for survival and neglecting their lands, and they were not in a position to take care of animals. So when we started with a program which would be land-based, but in many other areas where we have the Wadi program applied, we have seen that animals also become a part of it. The goats, in some places fishery also is a part of it. So the Wadi is not a blueprint. The Wadi is a pattern, and that is something which has to be developed according to the local wisdom and local appropriateness in different situations. So I'm sure the animals will find important place in that. The other thing you mentioned was talked about was social justice. So one important facet of this Wadi program I would like to point out, but it can be kept in mind even for other interventions, that here you have the Wadi is on 1 acre. On 1 acre, you are producing mangoes, you are producing wood, you are producing other agriculture produce. So that 1 acre production is being done and being used by one family. So what is happening is, while the production is taking place, it is also being used by, if you are doing wadi on 1,000 acres, it is 1,000 families who are benefiting out of it. Whereas if you are thinking only with the production approach, then you will do 1,000 acre production as a corporate, and that will not benefit 1,000 families. So you are achieving a distributive justice along with an increase in wealth. So increased wealth, how it will lead to distributive justice as a part of the program design, is something to be kept in mind and used whenever it is possible. Thank you.
Namaste, namaste, Girishji.
Namaste.
And it's a fantastic presentation and lots of new things we learned. I'm sure all my members will. I have one broader sort of a question for you. I don't know whether it is appropriate or not, but let me explain. Put it up. Currently we are listening about this technological dependence and trade threat as two challenges which our nation is facing. And our own independence is at stake because another new East India Company can take over our whole country. Our independence we may lose. We may remain independent, but this trade and technology dependence will force us to sort of depend on the West. Now, what you are doing, and I have seen your site, you are active in 15 states. BIF is doing work in 15 states and all that. So sir, is it possible to scale up this particular approach to a certain level so that it contributes to addressing these two challenges that the nation is facing? One is technological dependence and other is trade dependence. Can you think and tell us a little bit about, from your wisdom, from your experience, how this might be? I'm not sure, but how this might be a tool to address these two challenges. Namaste.
You said technological dependence, and what is the second one you said? State, is it?
Trade, trade.
State dependence.
Because
Okay.
Trump is telling that 100% tariff, etc., etc. So we depend on trade, we depend on technology, and Cesar Bamboo in our came for our convocation, and he said that all your mobile phones in your pocket can become disabled in 5 minutes through one executive order. And actually, Microsoft did that for Naira. For 5, 6 days, entire Naira could not access their own records because Microsoft closed its services. So it has been an experience and it is a real challenge that we face. And if we have to become really independent, then we have to grow our own methods. And I think, this is my thinking, whatever you are doing and whatever many others are doing, Vivekananda is doing, Amrita is trying to do through ASAP, etc. These can, if totally brought together as a mission mode, then they can help India becoming really truly self-reliant and not depend on the Western technology and trade relations. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. I think they are very important points. I would like to respond in the way I can think of. See, one thing is that the Wadi program has spread already. It is BIF itself is implementing it in with almost 300,000 families, and NABARD has adopted it as a very important approach for tribal development, and they have also helped a lot of NGOs to adopt it in different parts of the country. So it is now being implemented in 20-25 different states through the NABARD initiative of the Tribal Development Fund, and so it is spreading. But unfortunately, I think it is not spreading the exact way it should spread. It is being, increasingly considered as a horticulture program, which it is not. It is an integrated farming system, and the way to keep it relevant to the local situations is to see that it is not implemented as a blueprint. It has to adapt, it has to modify, it has to change according to the local requirements. And that is something, that innovation at the local level is something which should keep on happening. So I hope more and more organizations who come up for implementation will keep that in mind, and those who are sponsoring will not try to straitjacket it into a defined program. So that is one thing which is required. But another thing about technology, what I feel is that one of the important approaches we have taken is that the technology should be demystified before it is introduced. Any technology, it should be demystified. And how you demystify technology? By putting it in the hands of the people. So they become the custodians of the technology. Not only they become even the innovators who will modify the technology. I will give you an example which is from a very simple uh, technology for horticulture, and that is softwood grafting. Now we introduced softwood grafting because earlier, the only way to introduce better quality mango in that Wadi program was to buy the mango grafts from a distant place, because it was available only in Maharashtra. So when we started in Gujarat, we were able to get only from Konkan area the the grafts which were prepared using a different technique of approach grafting, and that takes a long time. That takes almost 1.5 years, 2 years to produce the graft, and it is very costly, and transportation is there. So when we introduce grafted mangoes into the Wadi program, we introduce mango grafting technique. So we train women, we train men in mango grafting using the new technique of softwood grafting, and that is something which led to creation of large number of local nurseries. In fact, if you go to where our headquarters is in Gujarat, you will find that every house is producing 500 to 1,000 to 5,000 mango grafts and selling them. And there are numerous cases where individual technicians were able to make 500 grafts, 1,000 grafts, sell them, and use that money to pay for their education. So this transformation was possible only because we said that we are not going to introduce grafts by just buying them from another distant area, but we are taking the technique of mango grafting to the people and making it an enterprise by adopted by them. So of course it is easy to do that for mango grafting than for a mobile technology. But even for mobiles, the mobiles make possible a lot of applications which are going to be beneficial to the people. It is not something which is just as for telephony purposes, but you can use it for. So we have trained what we call as through e-dost. A woman, a girl in a village has been trained in the use of a smart mobile phone to connect, to provide various types of services, digital services. There can be services which are financial services like banking. There can be services of commercial, e-commerce. There can be services relating to. So she acts as a village level sort of a digital service provider. She charges 10 rupees, 5 rupees, 20, 50 rupees for different type of services. And as a result of that, the services become available at the doorstep. At the same time, it creates a livelihood which is based on digital services. So that is how the mobile is used for a local need. But at the same time, you have the challenge of Microsoft, shutting off mobiles. But then you have a possibility of it being Indianized through people like Sridhar Vembu and Zoho, which is also becoming an important player in the whole thing. So there will be not, at least the dependence on outside technology providers can go down if slowly we shift to the Indian sources. But even Indian sources, we have to see that they don't become exploitative. Now, Sridhar Bambus will not probably because he has done with a different technology. But then he has inspiration. But demystifying technology, taking it to the people, making people knowledgeable about, not only applications but also the maintenance of the technology inputs. These are very important things. If we introduce a mobile and if you require it to be serviced by somebody sitting in a city, then that is not creating a Swaraj for the village people. So we need to introduce technology with a different approach, and demystification is the way to take it forward. This is something which is a continuing effort that we have to apply in all our work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we will remember what you have said. Thank you.
Sanjay ji has raised a very important point, and that has been nicely addressed by Sony sir. I would just one thing which I would like to simply add is that while we are encouraging the local talent and the genius like Sridhar Vembu and other entrepreneurs, we can also see it will take time for even Sridhar Vembu to take roots and cover the masses. It may take 5 to 7 years. Till that time, at least with Microsoft and Google and these people, we should, Indian government should get into the contracts that all the data should be stored in the data centers which are in India. Something like that, that the data center should be built in India, all the data should be stored in the Indian data centers, and Indian government should have a control on that data. At least this thing should be done temporarily, and slowly maybe people like Sridhar Vembu will take over. Thank you.
Yeah. If I may be permitted, sir, one more thought is coming to my mind, Girish, is that is there some way where some positive minded corporates like Tatas and people like that, can they be roped into such movements, and can their organizational structure and financial strength be sort of diverted toward these type of activities? Have you tried that sort of thing?
Yes, I think that is an important direction to pursue, and there are definitely a lot of Indian corporates who are seized with the points which Sanjay ji mentioned. So many of them would be interested in seeing that they are able to contribute to creating an Indianized solution, which will be independent of external influence. So I'm sure there will be, and we should make, but we should be ready with some sort of approach. In principle, they may agree, but we should be able to propose a concrete thing to them.
Yeah, so maybe some kind of a localized detailed project report type of thing could be thought of. And I feel sad that West Bengal is not part of your BIF yet. So maybe thinking of some particular
Yeah, we
region,
don't have a program right now.
yeah, some particular region, prepare a specific DPR, how this idea can be taken forward for that region, and then present it to some, willing corporate who could perhaps do it. So that project report specific to that zone. Because I agree 100% with you, sir, that this is not a blueprint.
Yes.
This is a guideline. This has to be adapted to the specific needs of that particular zone. Like you said, 6 months these people are migrating for their livelihood. So cattle is not a feasible solution for these people. So I have to sort of customize it to the needs and circumstances of that region. And probably West Bengal requires some such customization. I'm not sure. Although I'm a Bengali, I've lived out of Bengal for many years. Thank you.
Yeah, we need to create a sort of a proposal which is a project idea which is relevant for the particular region. Otherwise, you end up having a standard solution which will not work everywhere.
Namaste, Girish ji. I have a small question. Thank you so much for your presentation. It is really enriching thoughts. My one question was like the body project we thought it is for the hilly region and specifically for the tribal people it can be run. So it gives a lot of success and a lot of changes takes place in the society itself. Of course, I have seen a couple of projects in the Tamil Nadu, like real changes we could able to bring in the ground, but exactly not like your thought, like the holistic development per se, not only the economical and also the sustainable development way, and the people living with that. That kind of things we could not bring it because it's limited to some 6 years kind of things, 6 years, 7 years. My question is here: the body project is definitely it is a proven technology for the change. Now the question is whether it can be done even the plane, because you say that it is a combination of various technologies we can introduce, and we can bring the what is the deterioration takes place for the first couple of years in the ground, even if it is a plain lands, can we adopt these technologies and implement it in the body program itself?
Yes, Shekharji, it can be done anywhere. The components will vary, and what is important to remember is, as I said a few times before, it is not a blueprint; it is an approach. And what is the approach? The approach has three, four elements which can be replicated. Uh, the components don't have to be replicated. So the approach will have different elements. For one of the things is that you are combining seasonal crops with perennial crops, and that is something which makes a tremendous transformation. We have seen that the relationship of the farmer with the farm changes drastically, because very often in the tribal areas we had a situation where they grew only one crop in the whole year and would sow, would come back for the harvest, and after that they would come next year for sowing. So they hardly had any reason for coming to the farm for the whole year. As soon as you plant a tree, they start, their relationship changes. They start taking care of the tree. They start seeing that it grows well. They start seeing that there are aftercare practices they have to follow, and as a result of that, their relationship with the farm changes. It becomes a year-round relationship. That is number one. Number two is we are diversifying the cropping. So instead of one crop producing one type of produce, we are having different types of crops in the same land producing different things at different times of the year. So your diversity in cropping happens throughout the year, and you are able to not only hedge your own production to protect it from vagaries of market and vagaries of climate, but at the same time you are having income income flow which is throughout the year. So in every season there is something which is coming. Now that principle also applies in the plains. The principle of introducing trees along with seasonal crops also applies in the plains. Somebody, Jagdish ji had mentioned earlier about the role of animals. So introducing trees along with seasonal crops also applies in the plains. Different these key elements are something which are relevant throughout the whole landscape, whichever type of area we are working in. And it doesn't matter whether we are having this crop or that crop, whether we are planting mango or cashew or orange or lemon, that can change. What you plant as a tree crop, whether it is suabu or eucalyptus or indigenous trees or medicinal plants or live hedge plants, all that can change according to the local suitability. So what the component is can change. The approach is that you introduce perennials with cropping. We introduce integration of different types of production systems throughout the whole, which will produce throughout the whole year. Which there will be integration of livestock along with tree agriculture crops. All this will happen, so that those elements will be valid whether it is hills or whether it is plains. So one will have to design an appropriate model which is in the plains, which you have in mind.
Thank you so much, sir, enlightening this. And I think it makes the holistic approach for the future development. And also, you said that in the technologies also we should bring in so so that it can sustain suitable technologies, not with the destroying the future technologies. So I think we have to be very careful on selecting the technologies also, whether it is going to be sustainable or how it is going to affect adversely. I think that is really a wonderful thing for taking up next projects. Thank you so
Yes,
much, sir.
yes, you are right. And technologies are changing rapidly. So we have to keep ourselves open to introduce new technologies as relevant in the new design that we create. For example, today drones are becoming important and possible. So that is something which we should use. Today, mechanization becomes very relevant
Yeah.
because the labor availability in rural areas is going down, and the farmers, if they are given an option which is reducing the drudgery, that is something which will be adopted. So introducing the right technologies is something which is important for us to keep on exploring and trying out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Girish ji, for that noble gesture of coming towards us and giving us an insight about the field action. More is about the field action. In fact, we are immensely moved by that. Thanks for taking pains to make a better presentation, and we'll keep working on it. And as Vastevji has extended an invitation, so we look forward to you to visit Kanyakumari. Probably if it happens in the next week, we'll be more happy for the sustainable lifestyle workshop which we are intending to host actually. So we look forward for your association to grow with us, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, and it was my pleasure to meet all of you. Thank you, Vasudevji, and Madan, and all of us.
ॐ लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु। लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु। लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम्।